Hello, everyone. Oh, wow. What a beautiful rendition of Child Grove. It's traditional, the dance, we've all done it, Child Grove. And the band is Child's Play with an amazing cast of musicians, including our guest this evening. We're going to post them in the credits, so I don't even want to start to list everybody. There's so many on that beautiful tune that's on the CD, 12 Gated City, and you can buy that direct from childsplay.org. We are posting the link to all of that. I am Darlene Hamilton, and we are the Historical Tea and Dance Society. On our team, we have Lindsay Verbal assisting with the program, handling media, and our attendee questions. We have Reed Wilson monitoring Zoom for questions and postings. And we have Larry Hansen monitoring Facebook live chat for questions and postings, because we know you're out there. We invite you to post questions in those chat boxes on both platforms, Zoom and Facebook. And I think by now you know where that is. We will get to as many as possible in the after talk. Make sure you come to the after talk. It's actually, make sure you come tonight to the after talk, because we're going to get into some stuff that there isn't time to get into during our web chat. So it's going to be really good. We always post the link on our Facebook friends page or in the email registration that you got. I'm going to go right ahead. Oops, there's our clock. I'm going to go right ahead into a bio on our guest, because there's lots to talk about. For 37 years, Mike Richardson has been playing fiddle, calling, and dancing in the Seattle area. He teaches English country dance, contra, square, Irish set dances, French country dance, Australian bush dancing, and Morris dancing. He is also an organizer of contra, square, and English country dances. On the music side, Mike plays fiddle, guitar, banjo, mandolin, and just a few more instruments. He has played with the bands Hands 4, Scott's Broom, Blade Runners in Seattle, and Child's Play on tour around the US, and can be heard playing fiddle on their recording 12 Gated City, as we just heard. That gorgeous tune. Boy, I love that version of it. Mike is a choreographer too. You probably know that, maybe some of you. He's known for dances like The Turning of the Year and Bob's Boomerang, which has both English and contra versions. He also composes tunes and has released the book Crossing the Cascades of his dance and tunes. And you can find that through his website. A day job as a professor of radiology at the University of Washington School of Medicine hasn't stopped Mike from staff positions at dance camps in 9 states and 3 countries. He's also a past member of the CDSS board and is currently on the board for the Northwest Folklife Festival, which we're going to hear a little bit about tonight. Wow. Please welcome Mike Richardson. We're so happy to have him with us.
Howdy. Thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure, an honor.
It's great to have you here with us. Let's jump right in, because I know there's a lot to talk about. Thing number one.
Thing number one, a search for synergy. Well, I would define synergy as being, well, one facet would be the sum is greater, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And as you mentioned in my bio, I do a lot of things. And friends come to me sometimes and say, oh, well, I couldn't call, or I couldn't play, or I couldn't do all those other things. Say, well, why not? I said, because then I wouldn't get to dance. I said, dude, when you're playing, they're all dancing with you. When you're calling, they're all dancing with you. It's all the same thing. It's just a little different view of things. And I find that the more things that I find myself doing over the years, the more they tie in with each other down the line, and unexpected synergy that just makes it all better. And, you know, it's oddly enough, I can remember when all of this, I suppose you could call it a dilettante, but I remember when it first started, I was 4 years old. One of my earliest memories, I was playing with the kid next door, and you know how kids say, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a cowboy. No, I want to be a policeman. No, I want to be a doctor. None of that. He asked me, what do you want to be? I said, well, it's all interesting. I want to be in everything. Said, you can't be in everything. Can do, cannot, can do. So I went into my mom and said, Mom, you know, Jimmy next door says, I can't be in everything. And once I told her the story, she said, well, you can't be in everything. I said, well, what's the next best thing? I said, well, I guess you could be a scientist. Okay, I'm going into science. So I did. And Starting out, I guess in college, I was a physics major, which has turned out to be handy down the line. Big hobbies for years were electronics and ham radio. And that all came in pretty handy when I got through medical school and started training as a radiologist, because there is a lot of physics underlying what we do. And we use a lot of electronics. We use a lot of computers. Oh my Lord. And radio frequency, all my ham radio stuff, we use that to make MR images. So it all came to be very useful. Then for a while, I went to biostat grad school, and biostat is a pretty useful tool if you're in medicine. It's sad that most doctors don't learn it, but biostat is how you tell when you have a pile of data, which one is good and which one is garbage. So that's been useful down the line. I've picked up a number of programming languages right now. Python and R are my babies. And if you're a programmer, if you have a problem, you can write a tool that will solve that problem. And nobody else that doesn't have that tool can solve that same problem. So that's useful. And finally, in radiology nowadays, the big buzz, the big buzzword we're using right now is AI, artificial intelligence and deep learning. And it turns out that if you're a physics major and know how to program, and you had tensor calculus back in college, these things are all really handy for trying to understand deep learning and trying to teach to other radiologists. So yeah, I have fingers in a lot of pies, but they're all coming around. Other pies, for example, when I was about 3 years old, my family moved to Bogota, Colombia in South America. So grew up speaking Spanish, and that's been handy. College studied Russian and German, which have turned out to be handy. I got to call a dance once in Russia because Bob Dahlstrom, our main caller, was not around. Bob is fluent in Russian. I am not, but you say things like "Большой circle налево," big circle to the left, "Направо," and "Еще раз," one more time. So that was handy. Since then, I've been spending some time learning French, which is handy. Years ago, we were at a family event in Provence, and the kid said, "So you're a caller, can you call a dance for us?" No, we did French country dance, and they thought, tous les soirs, every evening, please. Well, that was swell. Working on Japanese now, so we'll see where that goes. I'll share with in this thing a few other sort of deja vu moments. I used to have these things pop up randomly. Now I seek them out. I can show that first image that I have, which is one of my hobbies for years was studying Aikido, which is a wonderful martial art and just a lot of fun, very physical, very graceful. And I noticed one of the first two classes, they're teaching this move called Iriminagi. And I thought, boy, this seems so familiar. And once you get into Aikido a little while, you learn there's these little balance points and moves and energy, a lot like dancing. Then it hit me, whoa, Iriminagi, that's a lady's chain. Except at the end of the lady's chain, you don't then slam the lady to the mat. So when you study Aikido, you learn that basically you have people coming at you with a certain amount of energy. They're sticking out an arm or a leg or something to attack you. In dancing, there's some similarities. People are coming at you, putting out an arm or thing, and you've got all the tools to throw them across the room or hurt them badly. So studying Aikido gave me a lot of insight on how not to hurt people, how to be really careful about people when this energy comes from a strange direction. Another thing about Aikido that's been so helpful is, when you practice it, you take turns. First, you throw your partner across the room, and then they throw you across the room. So when you're being thrown across the room, you spend a lot of time falling to the ground, and you have to deal with floor coming at you suddenly. And this happens in life. It's been great for playing softball sometimes. Instead of going over backwards or going face down in the dirt, you can suddenly tuck into a roll and save your valuable body parts. Even a dance floor once, we were goofing around, something went terribly wrong, and I suddenly was going face down on the hardwood floor, but going to a graceful tuck and roll, and okay, I'm not damaged. Now, as I enter my senescence, my geezer hood, when you're a geezer, your chance of falling down and getting hurt are a lot greater. And so I feel a lot better about that. Other synergy, being a professor, that ties in very nicely. For example, I noticed I've been in Seattle about 5 years, and suddenly I realized, gosh, my presentations are a lot better than all these other people in the faculty. Initially, my thought was, okay, it's got to be intrinsic brilliance. I mean, what other explanation is there? But I thought about it a little more. No, it's probably something else, because when we arrived in Seattle, we fell in the folk dance scene. And you've heard that old saying that in order to get good at something, do it for 10,000 hours or 10,000 times. And after 5 years in Seattle, I would have been up on stage, calling a dance, playing fiddle, playing guitar, playing piano, doing something, performing, teaching a dance. So I had 3,000 to 5,000 hours under my belt. This is crossing over. I like this. One last little crossover. I noticed one day I was listening to a Pat Shaw dance called Long Live London. I'll leave it to the interested student to look up the tune, but I said, wow, where have I heard this before? It occurred to me the A part to Long Live London is identical to the theme song for Blazing Saddles, the Mel Brooks movie, which is sort of hilarious. Then they diverged the B part. I went back and looked this up, and Pat Shaw published his dance about a year before Blazing Saddles came out. So who copied who? This might be a good time to move to the next thing.
That was great. I was typing in. Everybody's going to be looking that up tonight. I know. Thing number 2, music.
Music, you betcha. Yeah, it's the center of my universe, in one of my centers. And I think back to signal year in high school, sometime around sophomore year, I had this big transition. Before that, music was something I had to do. Your parents said, you've got to take piano lessons. You got to practice. Have you practiced yet for your recital? Oh God, no. And when you finish practicing, what do? You get a recital, a chance to screw up in front of all these people and feel like a moron. So no, I did not love music. But in high school, I was off working at a Boy Scout camp where some of the cool kids on the block play guitar and they were sing songs. I want to be cool. I want to be cool too. So I learned to play the guitar over the next year. And wow, what a transition. Suddenly, I went from, if you practice your piano, you have to, Mike, please stop practicing the guitar and come to dinner. For heaven's sakes, it's been 3 hours. Okay, guys, I love music, and I always have since then. But music is sort of a slippery slope to hell, because you start playing guitar, you think, well, what would it be like playing banjo? You play it for a while, say, all these tunes I'm playing, they're fiddle tunes. What would it be like playing fiddle? And once you learn fiddle, you realize you get mandolin for free because it's tuned the same way. And all these other instruments come floating in. And it's been a lot of fun. I've ended up playing a lot of bands over the years. You mentioned several of them. Child's Play was awesome. Little fish in a huge, big, wonderful pond. I mean, at the time I was in the group, half of the English country dance band, Bare Necessities, Kate Barnes and Mary Lee were in Child's Play. So yeah, if the Child Grove sounded great, it's because they are kicking out of the park there. Carrie Elkin, you can see on the screen right here, Steve Hickman, Ruthie Dornfeld, Dave Langford, and Laurie Andrews, and several other worthies are on there. It was a pleasure and honor to play with them over the years. Learned a lot. So played with them for a while, played with other bands. And of course, music leads to that next step, the slippery slope to hell. You learn to dance. You go to dances just because you want to hear live fiddle music. And after a while, somebody's going to ask you to dance. I said, no, I don't know how to dance. Don't be ridiculous. Get out here. And after you've danced for a while, you say, wow, this is pretty great. I like dancing. Where can I do more? Well, when we first started dancing in Seattle, you could actually contra dance 3 nights a week. So we did. We had a 3-night-a-week habit. And if you have a 3-night-a-week habit, is that enough? No, it's never enough. You want one more night. So people said, well, we're all out of contras, but you could try this English country dance. So we went to that, and it was an abrupt transition. Said, well, this is sort of weak beer. There's not much in the way of wild swinging here. The music isn't as lively, but you give it a little time, and then you start realizing, wow, when was the last time I heard a 3/2 tune or a 9/8 tune played for dancing in these wonderful keys and wonderful meters and wonderful, wonderful songs? So start going, because it's English country dancing. Where can I get more of that? And then you get into other things. You get up to organizing things. I'll speak about my organizing a little bit more. Next slippery slope to hell is you start calling things. And you call things and you become organized and you start organizing dances. We ran a contour dance for several years. And you start writing tunes and writing dances. You think, huh, what would happen? That was a pretty good move there. But what if we took that really cool progression, we bookended it with these other swell moves and added this tune to it? And that leads you into other wonderful things. The next image is a book I wrote many years ago. It's out of print, but if you have an Apple device, this book, Crossing the Cascades, we have a free version on the Apple Store that you can download. It's got all the tunes, a little button you can click and play the tune, and a number of dances I wrote back in those days. Also little vignettes about what was going on in my head when I wrote that dance and tune. So we, as we're English country dancers, we were having a wonderful time with it. And we started hearing about this thing called English country dance balls. I said, well, what's that? It's where you get dressed up and you go and you do English country dancing. And I thought, well, how come we don't have one? Oh, well, it's really hard, you know, and you got to book all this stuff. Well, we had no inkling of how difficult it might be. So we went ahead and put a group together, me and my wife, Chris, and Julie King and several other friends. And we organized the Seattle Country Ball. And the next picture is us at one of those balls. That was, I don't know, maybe 30 years ago. It's since passed into other hands. The next image is a picture of many people dancing at one of our balls. We had a number of people from California that showed up at our ball. We were gobsmacked. What are you doing here? It's a ball. Of course, where else would we be? Same time zone. Of course, we'll be coming to your ball. Our friends in Portland and Vancouver, BC said, oh, how great you have a ball. If only we could have a ball. That's so wonderful. And our job, of course, would tell them, dude, of course you can do this. At this point, I have a Texas riddle for you. I'm originally from Texas, and there's a riddle there. Why did the armadillo cross the road? And the answer is to prove to the possum it could be done. So here we were, these armadillos coaxing dubious possums in Portland and Vancouver. Of course, you have great halls, you have great musicians, do it. Next year, we had a Portland ball to go to. And a year or so after that, we had a Vancouver ball to go to. And now they have one in Victoria, BC. So out of riches come more riches. So organizing dances, that got me on several boards, including CDSS for 6 years, which was fabulous. Loved that time. We put on a ski dance weekend for a while, which was fun. On a group called the Portland Roadhouse right now, we're putting on a film festival in March. And I'm currently on the Northwest Folklife board. More on that in a little bit. This might be a good time to segue to the next particular thing, which is finding our tribe.
Thing number three.
Yes, thing number three, finding your tribe. You know, a lot of people spend a lot of their lives looking for their tribe, the people they want to hang out with, the people they want to do stuff with. And it took us a long time. My wife is a pediatrician. We met in medical school. And, you know, when you're going through all that training, it's a fairly tight sphinctered world. You have friends, sure, but you're pulled away in other directions and you're forced to focus like crazy on things. And at the end of that, you have a few friends, but you know, it's not the touchy-feely world of folk music where you're hugging everybody and smiling all the time. So for us, moving up to Seattle was a real transition. Also, me being a nerd most of my life, you know, nerds are not known for their social skills. So double whammy. We landed in the folk music scene and slowly got into it. We noticed after about a year or so, this peculiar thing. We knew hundreds of people, but we only knew their first names, no last names, no idea what they did for a living. All we knew were things, that person gives really good weight. That person's an awesome swinger. What a great fiddle player. Ooh, he plays banjo too. That sort of thing. And another one of those signal moments popped up not long after. I went off to a giant radiology meeting in Chicago. And I took my fiddle along because what else am I going to do except play fiddle in my hotel room after the radiology stuff is over? So I landed over here with the baggage carousel. And with my fiddle in my arm, I looked across the carousel. There was a guy across there I knew from a jam session. We both looked at each other and said, "What? You're a radiologist too?" I thought, cool. Starting to get things in focus in my life now. And so more dancing, more fun, more music, more radiology. And years down the line, we sort of came full circle. I was at a radiology meeting. And at some event, we had hired a DJ to play some music. And if you're in folk music, doing something to a DJ is just not that fascinating. So I was chatting with another friend over there, and we were both sort of dishing on the fact that we had a DJ there, and said, gosh, a couple of us should bring our guitars. And we looked at each other and said, what? You're a musician too? So I thought, okay, this is going the right direction. I like this. And the next image coming up, we put on a rock band for a radiology meeting coming up there in San Diego. Instead of spending all that money on a DJ, we spent it on getting this whole truckload of instruments and sound gear that showed up. And we just had this humongous party playing music. Darlene was asking me early on a run through, what's that yellow thing hanging from your guitar right there? Well, this particular gig happened to fall on St. Patty's Day. And while we were rehearsing our rock and roll numbers, some of the female radiologists in our group went out buying stuff for St. Patty's Day and came back with little perky green hats. And they came back with this glow-in-the-dark underwear. So in the middle of one of our numbers there, suddenly these fluorescent panties came flying up into the band there and on my guitar neck, and it was cool. The next image is some of the radiologists dancing to us, and yeah, they were getting down. We bad. We're radiologists. We're still bad. It was fun. So we found our tribe at last. I'm sure anybody who's ever danced somewhere other than your home knows you roll into a place, you take hands in a group, an English dance or some other dance. You feel a little bit of weight coming back. You look at each other and say, I don't know you, but I know a lot about you. And it's going to be a good evening. And it is. And you chat at the breaks, you find you have mutual friends, and it's pretty swell. And it's not just in the US, it's anywhere else that you dance in the world. Dancers know how to give weight. They know how to tell, really, oh, this is a good dancer. We should chat more. And this happened to me in Russia, in Canada, in England, in France. So you find out that your tribe is not just the people in your town, not just your family, but it's people all over the freaking place. Since then, we've had friends come over and stay with us from England and then play at our Folklife Festival. Friends from Russia come and go to fiddle festivals with us. And it's been pretty swell. So speaking of family, the next image is an image of my wife. In her Morris side, this is North by Northwest out on May Day. I believe it's, 2016. I did Morris for a couple of years, but I'm still on extended moratorium myself into other things. And when we decided we want to have a kid, our main hope was, okay, let's shoot for having a mammal and hopefully a musician. That was our dearest hope. And I think when our child was about 2, pulling himself up on the speakers while we were playing some rock numbers and bouncing up and down in time with the music. Dude, score, we have a musician. And the next image is one of son singing lap while playing a gig at a New Year's camp. But after that, it's, hey, I'd like to play something too. What do you want to play? I'd like to play the bass. Don't you want something smaller, more portable, like a fiddle? No, I want a bass. So next image, got a bass and started going to fiddle festivals together. And then the next image, playing gigs and things together, which is a lot of fun. So we feel truly blessed. Our tribe is just getting better in every way. And this is a nice segue into another part of our tribe enlarging. That would be the Northwest Folklife Festival. It happens every year in Seattle, Memorial Day weekend. And it's a big, wild, wonderful party. It happens on the Seattle Center grounds, which is about 74 acres in the center of Seattle. During the weekend, we'll have something like between 100 and 200,000 people there at one time, teeming over the grounds. And, if you are, the nice thing about Seattle, it's a pretty big place. So if you're in Seattle Center during Folklife, then Folklife is the center of the universe. If you're not in the Seattle Center, then you don't even know it's happening. But if you're there, it's pretty great. Our first Folklife, we went there and I didn't know how to dance, but I knew how to play banjo and guitar. So I ended up flat picking fiddle tunes under the Space Needle or sitting a banjo on Bluegrass Hill. And the next year, learned how to folk dance. And OMFG, I realized about the second day, about 7 o'clock one evening, I feel really bad. Why do I feel sick? And I realized I forgot to eat. Rookie mistake, but I forgot to eat. I've just been dancing all day. So look at the next image, you can see some of the events. The Space Needle sort of towers over everything. And this stage you see there, that mosaic, is called the Mural Amphitheater stage. The next image is with it filled with people watching a folkloric group. And the next image shows something I stumbled across one day. We have a number of buskers there, and there was our child with a number of friends. Our child is in white there, white t-shirt, and they were just singing because, hey, it's folk life. We have all grown up here in utero, and of course we're going to play at folk life. What else are we going to do? The next image is the Space Needle towering over our main dance venue, which is the Roadhouse. And the next image after that shows it filled with people doing a contra dance. They're dancing not on concrete, but something we call the folk floor. Long ago, we had to deal with the issue of, it's hard on your back and your body dancing on concrete all day long. So after a lot of experience, came with this thing, which is close to about 2 centimeters thick, of several layers of material that are fun to dance on. We can lay it down in a couple hours, pull it up in a couple hours. The next image is a video. I was calling it Folk Life in 2016. So roll the video. That dance, by the way, if you're wondering, is a dance I wrote years ago called Noun Verb Swing Your Partner, which the name was sort of a mild, gentle social commentary on the contra dance scene, where if swinging is dancing, everything else is waiting until it's time to swing. The next image after that is done from Folk Life 2013. Most of the performers all the performers at the Folk Life perform for free. They're volunteers. We get mostly people from the Northwest, but we occasionally get people from California and New England and Texas and everywhere. Right here is a band composed of W.B. Reed from Seattle, Frank Blade on fiddle from Seattle, and the greatly revered Bob McQuillan from New Hampshire. Before his death, Bob came out here multiple times, multiple camps, multiple folk lives, and is still revered in Seattle. Since then, we've had a number of friends from England come over and call and play at Folk Life. And we're hoping this year to have last year it was all virtual. We're hoping this year to have a hybrid in-person and virtual. We'll see how things go. Hey, COVID, what could happen next? We'll see. But we're hoping to have some safe dancing outside, maybe well-ventilated dancing in that big Folk Life room. This might be a nice time to segue to the next thing.
That's right. Thing number 4.
What the heck is English country dance? And when you start dancing, you have an idea of what you think something is. Like I started dancing to Laurie Endress's English dance, where Laurie would teach the dance and then play piano and call the dance and call these lovely lyrical play for dances and other dances. I thought, okay, this is English country dance. I know what it is. And then you go off to other places in the country, the Bay Area or on the East Coast, where they have their own idea of what English country dancing is, and you don't do it quite the way they do. And so you say, okay, this is cool. Show me the true way to do English country dancing, and you learn some more ways to do it and have fun. And then you go off to other places like, say, hey, England, the E word, and see how they do it there. My wife and I went to Sidmouth Festival back in, I think, 1990. And it was pretty wonderful. I ran into people who are now lifelong friends, like Rodri Davis from Manchester, who took us by the hand, showed us around, showed us the secret dances you could go to that weren't on the program, some of the other cool events to go to. And, if you're used to dance in the US, you quickly find, you take hints forward, they say, oh, you're a good dancer. And then you do something else. They find, oh, you're not from around here, are you? Like You fix your laser drill sight eye contact right on the dancer next to you, and they start feeling a little bit like a mongoose in the stare of a cobra, or maybe the other way around. And you realize, maybe eye contact is a little different here, especially in the older dancers. You found out that vigorous, wild, and crazy swings are not widely shared among certain age groups, but others they are. You find the calls quite wonderful. I was at a square dance, one of those square dances where you move around, change partners, and you have no idea where your partner is. And then the caller says something like, promenade around, by gum, turn around, and there's mom. And sure enough, there was my sweetie. And I thought, okay, this is pretty wonderful. I love this. Well, fast forwarding a couple of years, I found myself going to a work meeting in Switzerland, and I had to change planes somewhere. So why not England? Hey, it's on the way. And I called my friend Rod, said, hey, any dancing I can do there? And said, hey, sure, want to call a dance? So suddenly I had a dance gig calling at a small club near Manchester. And again, find out some new things about English country dancing. Well, what our usual evening here of English country dancing is, we might do a play for dance, then we'll do a ceilidh. We'll take a break, we'll do a contra dance, and then take another break, maybe a Scottish country dance. And by the way, did you bring your box of CDs? My box of CDs. Why? Well, we have no band here, and here, use my box of CDs. So we did, and it was a lovely evening. I learned a lot about expectations and how dances run other places. The next year I had the same work gig, and this time I said, maybe I should bring along a band with me. And if you're familiar with KGB, a band from the Northwest, also known as MI5, when they play for English country dance, Claude Ginsburg, wonderful violinist, and Julie King, excellent piano player, they said, sure, we're game. And my friend Rod and other friends in England set up a bunch of gigs all around the country. And the first stop was the InterVarsity Folk Dance Festival in Manchester. Now, this is a pretty cool festival to go to if you're an American dancer and looking for energy. Boy, is IVD full of energy. And I took Claude and said, hey, come on, let's go do a ceilidh. He said, ceilidh, oh my God, no, that's so lame. I said, no, come on. So we went out there on the dance floor, and they started teaching this dance called Horse's Brawl. If you fire up the next image right there, this is an old dance from the French court, French Renaissance. It's collected in the Orchestrographie from back in 1589. And the next image shows how you would do the music and the dance in those days. The double à gauche, the double à droite. And it's done here in America. It can be a fairly sedate dance. And I think Claude had probably seen that and said, oh, dear God, get me out of here. No, Claude, hang up. And then the band, I think as I don't recall, I think it was Blausabella, this wonderful high energy dance band there. They were, I think, as I recall, they had an electric melodeon and a trap set and I think a bombard and other things. And boy, they were blowing the roof off the place. It was great. And then, this sort of sedate dance where you have your fingers hooked together and you step to the right and step to the left. There, half the crowd had been to the pub right before this and slightly inebriated. So you have 300 English dancers. You step to the right, everybody jumps up in the air and yells, oi, at the top of their lungs. Then you go to the left 3 steps and do the same thing again. After a couple of reps of this, Claude said, this dance is growing on me. This is pretty cool. And it was pretty swell. So we had a lot of fun at IVDIF. We did a few dances, and then our friends had said, so along the way, would you like to attend an English country ball here? And we said, well, sure. An English country ball in England, sign us up. So on the appointed time we showed up, we went to the Pittville Pump House, and from the name we thought, okay, there's going to be a pub. Are we going to mess up our nice outfits in this pub? And no. The next image, you can see what the Pittville Pump House was built in the 1800s as a place where the gentry went to take the waters. There's some mineral springs there in Pittville. And the Pittville Pump House is this elegant, wonderful place that you could film a lot of BBC productions in, and probably have. If you go inside, the next image is what the dance floor looks like, which is pretty wonderful. And it turns out the Pittville Pump is not just a spigot where you get a glass of mineral. It's this next image, which is this towering figure made out of marble, which is about 8 feet tall and is pretty darn ornate. So we had a wonderful day dancing there at their English Country Ball. Now, last episode of this Historical Dance and Tea Society, you had Bob Dulcimer, who talked about dancing Newcastle in England for the first time. And that's exactly what happened to us. We went out on this elegant dance floor thinking, well, let's see what the dance is. It said Newcastle. We thought, okay, well, they're probably going to walk us through it because like we would in Seattle. No way. They said, all right, with the music, Newcastle. And I've got to say, Julie and I held up the side. The ragged colonials did not disgrate the rest of the US people. We went through it and thought, whew, oh my God, sweating bullets, but we made it. And then they said, like in Bob's case, right then, hold your sets, rotate one place to the right, we'll do the dance a bit faster. And we did. And backwards and in high heels, we did Newcastle again without a walkthrough. Then hold your sets one more time, rotate one more time, and we'll crank up the music a lot faster and not quite to rapper tempo, but up there. And it was, yes, we held up the side, but it was scary for a moment. And then we tootled down to London, where I had a gig calling at Sharp House. If you've never been to England, a good place to start would be go to Cecil Sharp House. This is wonderful big building near the Camden Street station. It's a couple blocks away. Big room. One thing that English dancers in America learn is they have a pub built into the bottom floor, which is pretty convenient. And upstairs, they have this wonderful big hall called the Kennedy Hall, which you can see on the next image. It's this gigantic, beautiful room, wooden panel walls, murals on the side. If you were at Alan Roberts' edition of this particular historical tea a few months ago, he talked about working in challenging halls, and Kennedy Hall is challenging from an audio standpoint because there's a lot of hard surfaces there. I would love to see what Alan would do with Kennedy Hall. I did not have Alan, but I had the best person in England. I had this sound person named Colin Hume, who has been on this broadcast before. And Colin wears many hats. In addition to being a lovely person, a caller, teacher, choreographer, dance writer, musician, and many other things. He's also an excellent sound person. And he did sound for me. Of course, here I am, an American with a Texas accent calling in England. So at the end of the first half, this gentleman who is now probably my current age came walking up and said, I can't understand a single word you're saying. And I thought, okay, I'll try to speak more clearly. Thank you for the feedback, sir. And Colin came and said, he can't understand us either. Okay, good to know. I said, but you're Sandy Bradley. She had something she did that was very handy. If you don't know Sandy Bradley, she is this paragon from the Pacific Northwest. She's been calling and producing radio shows and one-woman theater for many decades here, greatly revered in the Northwest. And in part of her youth, she had gone out calling across America, across England. And I would run into her shadow in several places. I would call it one place where a woman would say, oh my, isn't it great to have an American here calling? And her husband would say, oh, don't be silly. We get Americans all the time. Why, Sandy Bradley was just here 10 years ago. I said, okay, good to know. And Colin said, why, Sandy Bradley, here's what she did. She was calling a square dance where in this cacophonous sometimes hall, she'd say, all right, you'll have trouble understanding me. So when my voice is down here doing like this, do the main figure of the dance. But when it goes up here like this, I'm going to be doing the break figure, so do the break figure. And she did, and we had no trouble. I said, oh, I wish you'd told me that before I called my square, but thank you, Colin. That's a good thing to know. So apropos of our tour around England, we were spotted by some scouts for the Sidmouth Festival who said, say, I'd like to come over next year for the Sidmouth Festival. And Sidmouth, if you haven't been here, is this lovely town down along the south coast of Devonshire. Here's a picture of the beach and the esplanade there. Just a wonderful little town. Sidmouth is mentioned in the Doomsday Book from back around the year 1000. And if you read about Jane Austen, apparently she came down on holiday here and allegedly fell in love. It didn't quite work out for some reason, but it was not Sidmouth's fault. So Sidmouth is a wonderful place. They've been having their festival there since, I guess, 1955. The next image, I think, is from circa that era. And you can see people dancing all along the esplanade for miles there. And The next image shows another thing to do with the Esplanades. Sometime during the week at Sidmouth is Morris Day. There's the procession of the Morai down the Esplanade. If you can think of this large aviary of different Morris sides of all colors in all directions there, it's pretty wonderful. And one thing you learn about Sidmouth is, unlike Seattle, which is a town of, I don't know, close to 1 million, and if folklife's happening and you're not in the center, you don't even know it's there. Sidmouth grows, it doubles in size from about 10 or 12,000 to about 24, 25,000, which means every single thing that could be a venue is a venue. Every church hall, every pub, every esplanade, every lawn of size has a tent on it, and some pastures. So in some places that aren't even dance floors at all. The next image, if you've been to England, you've learned that a lot of places in England get their names from the rivers, and Sidmouth is right on the mouth of the River Sid. This is on the ford, so it could be called Sid Ford, except they already have one a little further up the river. But there's a dancing in the ford every year because it's pretty hot in England sometimes, and the ford feels just about right. And the next image shows yet another place where one can dance. There you can this is looking from inland from a drone, and you can see the beach off there in the distance. There are little 4 green squares, and the next image shows an arrow pointing to a big tent in the sheep pasture, which becomes one of the most wonderful places to dance there. It's called the Late Night Extra. If you pay a little extra, you get to go to the Late Night Extra, because starting about 11 or 11:30, they go on Kaylee dancing until, Lord, 2:30 in the morning. Loud, wonderful, raucous music, electric melodeons, bombards, bagpipes, accordions, the works. And then they roll down the hill to the little campground there below, sleep it off, and fold, rinse, repeat for the next day. So when you go to Sidmouth, you find your definition of a band changes a little bit. If you're in America, it's a fiddle and something else, but in England, it's an accordion and something else. It might be an accordion and a flute. Maybe there's not a piano, maybe there's no other rhythm instrument. And if you're a caller there, they rotate you around. So I would call to a accordion and flute one day, and the next a couple of fiddlers. Next it would be all sorts of things. It was wonderful. You also find out that what you consider a dance is a favorite awesome dance might be less awesome or more awesome than you thought. In the US, as I mentioned, the swing is the thing, and dancing is waiting until it's time for the next swing. There, a swing is like a do-si-do. In many crowds, it's just, okay, it's another thing you do, sure, why not? However, there is a dance in England called the double swing contra, which seems odd because in America, there are many double, even triple swing dances, but there's only one, so they called it the double swing contra. And if you're an American and you look at that dance, you thought, oh boy, the chance to swing twice. And realize, gee, neither swing was with my partner. Interesting. So if I were programming a dance now, I would program much different figures. And you can get some feedback from, when the other callers rush the stage and ask you, what was that dance? Well, all the wow dances, I thought they were going to do that. They said, oh, yes, interesting. We've done that, but we take out that really difficult hay figure that you're so proud of. But I call this one little dance with this little clever figure from square dancing called the cozy square, the cozy group, cozy line. And it inverts in some interesting figures. And there's a contra dance called Cozy Nella by Orris Johnson. I call that, and immediately every English dance caller came and said, my God, what was that? Can I have a copy of your card, please? I said, yes, thank you. And okay, thank you. More interesting. And one last Sidmouth experience. The next image show you, if you're a dance caller or musician, probably recognize this dance. It's called the Black Nag. And if you've done English country dancing, you've done the Black Nag, and you may have varying opinions to it. If you haven't done the Black Nag, it's a 3-couple set, and as the name suggests, there's some figures in there that suggest a horse galloping back and across the set. And if you're part of the effete world-weary English country dance scene in Seattle or other places, you might think, oh, the Black Nag, oh, drear. But I was booked to call with a band called Junction 24, which features a wonderful violinist, jazz and classically trained, named Brian Stone. And they played some awesome music for my first part of the set with them. And then my friend Rod Davis said, hey, Mike, you should call the Black Nag. I said, Black Nag, are you kidding? That's pretty lame dance. Oh, no, it's great. You should call the Black Nag. Well, I don't even have my card here. Here, take my card. So, all right, line up for 3 couple sets for the Black Nag. And the British dancers thought, yes, yes, the Black Nag. And the American dancers in the crowd said, oh, the Black Nag, and eye rolls. And so the first time through the music, Brian played it straight, just lovely lyrical, as lyrical as you can play the Black Nag, but it was lyrical. And people were getting into it. And then the second time through the music, Brian kicked it up a notch. The band started playing rock and roll, and it was nasty. And it was great. And the English dancers just sort of were floating about a foot off the floor, and it was excellent. And the American dancers' eyes started bulging a little bit, and we're going along with it. Well, okay, then this is not bad. And then the final time through, Brian kicked it up and into the stratosphere, started playing wild gypsy stuff way up the neck of his violin, and people were dancing accordingly. It figuratively blew the roof off the tent we were in. At the end of that time through the Black Nag, everyone was cheering and jumping up and down. Even the American dancers, their eyes were bulging, said, wow, that's a pretty cool dance. I have never danced a Black Nag quite like that. So one of my big takeaways from dancing in other places is there are really no boring dances. There are no boring music. They're boring dancers and boring callers and boring musicians who don't see the possibilities and the juice that's in a dance or in a tune. So this might be a nice time to switch to the next theme.
This is great. Thank you. Thing number 5.
Sure. Technology. Well, as you've heard in my upbringing, I am sort of a tech nerd. And much of my daily life at work is tech. In order to understand the images I'm producing, I have to know something about quantum mechanics. I have to know about nuclear magnetic resonance spins. And even as a hardened geek physics major, if you start digging into what's going on with nuclear magnetic resonance, you suddenly find it a lot tougher going in some of the easier aspects of physics. So I'm doing high tech all day long. Everything I do is run on a computer. So I wouldn't say it's love-hate relationship. It's sort of love, occasional dislike of technology. And this is where music has been one of my salvations, because here I have a hobby, even a lifestyle that, suppose the next zombie apocalypse comes and we have no more iPhones, we have no more amps, we have no more internet. I could still do this in a field by candlelight. So the next image is an example of where I got to do this. This is from a Fort Nisqually down in Tacoma, one of the old pioneer forts, which is still in awesomely good shape. And periodically they will have reenactments there, and I was asked to come down and call and play there. So I arrived at the fort and said, okay, dressed roughly like what I imagine frontier like, where to be like, and where's the sound system? Oh, you were the sound system. Where's the electricity and the lights? None of that. Here's your candle. So, okay, then, right then. So where's my band? Well, you're the band and the caller. Okay, fine. So I taught a simple dance, played a simple tune, and we had such a lovely evening dancing by candlelight. And I know I can go back to that place if I have to, even if the whole internet never comes back again. So an antidote to tech, but I still love tech. I'm still on that love-dislike relationship. It's mostly love. This comes up a lot when Chris and I go to dance camps. Chris is a pediatrician. I'm a radiologist, but I used to run an emergency room and I was an internist in a previous life. So I still have a few medical chops. And when Chris and I go to camps, either by design or default, we end up being the camp doctors. A lot of dance camps, it's something happens, call 911. It's when we're there, it's call Mike, call Chris. And we've reacted to that in certain ways. Chris has set up this wonderful medical kit that we take to camps we go to. She calls it the OWI kit. It's this big plastic bin, sort of a self-service medical kit. And if you find yourself, you have an owie or a boo-boo, you go up there and look in the bag, owie or boo-boo, and pull out Band-Aids or aspirin or something like that. Or if you have the floozy poo-poos, then something that may deal with that. Or if you are feeling a little allergic and you have little sniffles, a bag for that. We have also upped the technologically for the last I guess since 2006, we've also carried along an AED, that is an automatic defibrillator that we take along with us to camps, because New Year's Eve 2006, we were on an island in Puget Sound at Northwest New Year's camp, and a good friend was in good shape, relatively young, in her 40s, suddenly collapsed on the dance floor. I was just a few feet away, came over and checking out, no pulse, crap. Okay, people started to dilate, double crap. Okay, let's start cardiac arrest protocol here. Just started doing CPR. And I was so glad when the next piece of technology came along, someone said, hey, in the camp center, they've got an AED here. Would you like to use this? Oh, thank you for bringing that. You know, we set up the paddles. I don't know if you've ever used an AED, but even if you haven't, all you have to know is turn it on, find it and turn it on. And hopefully we can discuss a little bit of this in the after chatter. If you turn it on, it will announce in a large stentorian voice what you need to do next, which is handy. You know, even if you're a medical professional that have done a lot of CPR in the past, still here you are with a good friend in a place you didn't expect to be doing it. It's good to have put the paddles on. Okay, put the paddles on. Now, doing EKG, I could look at the screen and say, oh crap, this is VFib. And I knew what it was going to say next was push the button to everyone clear for defibrillation. And 1 or 2 pulses in, the heart started again. Still get a little misty thinking about that, because, you know, when you're out of pocket, you're doing it in a place you never expect to do it. There's a little PTSD and that sort of thing. And after that, we got to the next piece of technology, which is a helicopter, which picked her up and took her to Seattle. And she's doing fine, still dancing, still a great part of our community. One thing we changed is a lot of us started getting religion about AEDs. Sure was great, we had one there, but we didn't have that as part of our protocol. So we raised some money and we, by God, put one in our contra dance hall. And when we started going to camps, we started going to those. I wrote a note about it in CDS's news saying, here's what happened to us. We were lucky and we were mostly prepared. You might not be, so strongly consider getting on this. I think a number of the venues in the Bay Area started getting their own. And so I would just ask the group, you know, do you know where your AED is? And if not, find out, because it would be a great thing. The next week, tech figures in, hey, 2020, the year of COVID. COVID came along and we all started hiding our bunkers. We all started looking for protective gear, and it was sort of hard to find masks that worked. It was hard to find out which mask you were supposed to wear. So if you want something like an N95, they were gone from the stores. So the next image is one of my reactions. Yeah, a techno nerd, I took a couple of simple household items like vacuum cleaner filters and elastic, and by the way, a 3D printer, and printed this version of N95, which worked pretty well. I printed a number of masks, handed them out to friends, family who couldn't get N95s. Printed out some other masks. If you throw up the next image, this is a mask purely for fun. Sometimes you want something more than that. And here's yet another one that maybe some English ball, this will come out. So it was useful for that. My biostat background started coming in handy. The next image is a picture of a graph I plotted just today. Part of the gig for being a physician is people are not physicians, even though they may have PhDs and lots of training in other areas. They come to you and say, so what's going on? What do we do next? Where are we? Are we ever coming out of this nightmare? So I have some Python scripts will periodically check the databases, and looking at this graph, it's looking sort of hopeful. I mean, we just came out of a 3-day weekend, so maybe that significant drop is just an artifact that maybe they didn't test as much as they should have. So I'm hoping it's not going to bounce all the way back up, but maybe we were getting a little past this Omicron curve here on the West Coast. Hope so. Yeah, fingers crossed. Next image, another place where tech sort of crossed our lives here. I joined the CDS's board, I think the end of 95. It immediately started wondering, what can I do to help out CDSS? And noticed, you guys don't have a website. They said, why would we want a website? Trust me, you need a website. So they sent me a lot of pictures from their archives, which I digitized and put up on this mock-up of the website, which I showed at my first board meeting, which was in Berkeley, California. And Bob Dulcimer was the incoming president. Bob and the other people watching, so what's this you want to show us? I scrolled it up and they said, ooh, pretty cool. What is it? I explained, and the next image, which is the first edition of the CDSS news popping up on the internet. And then CDSS came along pretty quickly and they said, yeah, we got this. We can take over now. But in the meantime, I set up websites for other places like the New England Folk Festival Association. That ran a computer on my desk at the University of Washington for a couple of years until they finally realized, hey, why is our web server in Seattle? And which point Dan Pearl gave me a call and said, okay, Mike, we're ready. And I handed it over to Dan and they've run that. I also set up the website for the Folklife Festival back in those days, and it's now in their hands. So COVID, what do? You're trying to put your life together, trying to do all the things you love, playing music with friends, and you realize it's not safe to do this. So you think for technical ways around it. And one way I figured is, okay, we'll each play our piece of the tune. We'll put it together digitally. So here's one that I put together with just me as a proof of concept. Hi, I'm Mike Richardson. The band and I are going to play an old-time fiddle tune called Sandy Boys. Here we go, boys. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it goes on like that for another couple of minutes. It took me, I don't know, about an hour to record all the parts, and then several hours to put the piece together. Me to say, okay, this isn't going to work. This is not going to be a great jam session. We need to do something a little differently. About that time, I heard about something called Jamulus from a friend whose orchestra group was rehearsing with it. So I dug into a little more and then started finding some friends. Again, that riddle about why did the armadillo cross the road? Well, the next step was me, the armadillo, coaxing dubious possums into bringing Jamulus into their lives. If you haven't heard of Jamulus, what Jamulus is a type of software that reduces the amount of delay in the sound. Now, anyone who's Zoomed for the last 2 years knows there's a delay there and you can't jam because the delay is about a half second. Jamulus chops it down to under 30 milliseconds. So if you go to the next image there, you can see our group that's been playing since February last year together. We call ourselves Blue Star because we're located all the way from Seattle up and down the Blue Star Highway, aka I-5, as far down as Portland, all playing apparently in synchrony. So these are all dubious possums I coax onto Jamulus. If you go to the next image, you can see, if you're thinking, huh, what does Jamulus look like? Well, you fire up Jamulus and you see a screen that looks like this when you hit the connect button. Immediately see green numbers which say, hey, you could log on these servers with minimal delay and have a jam session. You see them in red and you say, that's a little too far away. If you look at the next image, you see the people on the other side of the planet and you realize that, gosh, the speed of light just isn't as fast as I would like. I probably can't be using this to play with somebody in Singapore or Russia or certain places in Europe. When you do bring it up though, you go to the next image with people in your ballpark, you find a little soundboard that looks like this, everybody's name and their instrument, and you can, okay, let's turn the bagpipes down there. Let's up the flute a little bit, and the guitar, yeah, coming up there, collar, we can drop the collar out, but we can have some pretty nice jam sessions. And I've got to say that after doing this for about 11 months now, every Sunday night when I have our jam, this is pretty much the high point of my week. And we all go away just feel a little bit glowing because we played with our friends again. It's been so great. Final little bit of tech is, after playing together for a year now, we put together all the tunes we played into one big LaTeX file. LaTeX is a geeky thing that you use to make books. And we now have this tune book with about close to 500 tunes in it. So it's a nice record of where we've come over the last year playing with our friends. So that pretty much ties up tech for me in COVID and folk music.
That was great. Thank you so much. Really enjoyed it, and really enjoyed the information about the medical things that we need at the dance, and we should talk more about that in the after talk. So
Sure.
right now, let's move on because I have some announcements to make for Mike, and actually maybe you want to talk about them. The Portland Roadhouse Independent Film Festival, which we're posting information on. Do you want to say anything about that?
Sure. The Portland Roadhouse is a group. We've been putting on a dance event, about a 9-hour dance event every year for the last 10 years as part of this larger thing called the Cascade Promenade, where you start in Seattle and dance your way city by city over 5 days down to Eugene, Oregon. And this was the final event. Well, COVID, hey, they can't dance together. So last year we had a virtual festival. That was cool. This year we were so tired from second year of COVID. We didn't have the energy to put on a virtual festival. We thought, let's do a film festival. We'll just put an evening, we'll all sit back and watch cool videos. So that's coming up on March 13th. And if you go to portlandroadhouse.org, the schedule will appear there and you'll see some of the cool things.
And it looks really great. Let me cut in for a minute and say that.
It should be fun. Yeah, it's some nice little microcosms of the things we love so much about this music and dance. Hope you could come. All the proceeds will go to charities like CDSS and Northwest Folk Life.
Ooh, that sounds great. And speaking of Northwest Folk Life, we've got dates.
That'll be every year on Memorial Day weekend. So we hope it's safe to come up here in a plane. We hope it's safe to dance. We will have an online component if you can't, and if it isn't. But someday we will dance again, and we would love to have you there.
We are also going to post a link for your website because there's a whole bunch of really fun stuff on that, including dances and music and more. But I cannot let you go without asking, what's your favorite dance? Everybody always wants to know.
Initially, it was a hard question. Then it came pretty quickly. There's a dance called Cle Elum Mover by Luther Black, a local caller. It's one of those dirt simple dances that you could do with any crowd, any venue, without even teaching the dance. You just say, take hands forward, circle left, circle right, put your hands in the center, go the easy direction, i.e. star, go back, into the center and back, swing your partner, and then have that group bumble off somewhere else to the floor, grab another group. So I've done it for English groups. I've done it in Russia, a version of that. I've done it in France. And that's why I love that dance before all others.
That's great. And I always ask musicians, what's your favorite tune? What tune gives you great joy?
Well, there are so many, but I'm informed of that by Fred Laurie Ingres, wonderful dance musician who at a workshop years ago, he said, when you're playing for a dance, especially a newcomers crowd, start off with a single jig and a major key. It's got this beat that's sort of like, remember Ben-Hur, that guy beating the drums in the galley there? The beat is unmistakable. Even if you're not a dancer, that it's time to put your foot down. And a single jig gives you that. The major key makes it happy sounding. So just off the cuff, The Moon and Seven Stars is a single jig that I could play to the end of time and never get old.
That's great. Yeah, great tune too. Thank you so much, Mike, for being on. And I'm really looking forward to the after talk. I'm going to jump into my goodbyes and what's coming up next and all that stuff. Thank you to our 5 Things team, Lindsay Verbal in the background, Reed Wilson on Zoom, Larry Hansen on Facebook, along with helpers Kara King and Dan Vilter. We have a great team. You can check out the list of web chats we have had on since March 2020. Web chats are also available on Facebook on our main page, on the Country Dance and Song Society website, and on our YouTube channel. Let's see. Oh, no, I already said that. After talk sessions are not publicly available. However, you may request a link to an after talk by emailing us at our website, at our email address, which we are posting now. And a big thank you, of course, to everyone who's been donating to all the different causes and also to our group, because your donations are helping us pay the rent on this Zoom meeting. So thank you very much. And you've been hearing it for the last couple of months. It's back. We have our 5 Things commemorative pin fundraiser back. So we're going to post information on how you can get one, but Mike gets one because he's been a guest on our show. Our After Talk link is being posted now, so you'll have that. Coming up next, our next show is Tuesday, February 15th, and we will be announcing the guests soon. We're checking on a couple of things, making sure that schedule works before we announce. So hang tight, and we will be letting you all know very soon about who our next guest is, but it is the day after Valentine's Day, Tuesday, February 15th. You can still join us for tea times on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Pacific. It's a lot of fun. It's a social hour. Just come in, say hi, see what everybody's chatting about. And other events, feel free to post yours, but we are going to talk about a couple of ours coming up. On January 29th, we have a Jane Austen historical dance lecture at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, from Jane Austen to Fezziwig and beyond, why the last dance of the evening became the best dance of the night, with Susan DeGuardiola, and we love having Susan on. So if you haven't seen her yet, heard her talks yet, you probably want to jump in. And then also, if you're local to Southern California, this Sunday we are having our unofficial Jane Austen Day at the Huntington Library, Art Museum, and Botanical Gardens. This Sunday, January 23rd, all day with a group picture at 1 p.m. You can find out more by going to our website or looking for the event page on Facebook. For donations, Mike recommends you donate to those in need in your own community. Doesn't have to be money, it could be your time and energy, and that is always needed by someone we know. So our exit music is another cut from that wonderful album 12 Gate City by Child's Play. It's a medley of 3 tunes, Huey Shorty's Trip to Windsor and Barrowburn Reel. So we will see you all in 2 minutes in the After Talk. Thanks for coming.